working? Here we go. Here we go. That's better. Let's see what we got here. Let's see if that's broadcasting for us. Oh, maybe that's it. Oh, I hear us. Oh, maybe that's it. Oh, I hear us. All right. We are live, Coach Kevin. I hope you're not playing any kind of copyrighted content right there, or else you will get us.
No, I don't know any songs.
You don't know any songs? You should totally go Stairway to Heaven with that thing. I don't understand why.
I don't even know without
legitimately. Okay, whatever that is. You heard me. All right, let's go back to strumming your device here. Totally good. We're good.
Oh, it didn't go off camera.
It's chilly in here. I don't know what you're doing walking around that thing. Should we turn the heat back on?
No,
No?
we're gonna get warmish.
Oh, are we going to get warmish?
Ish.
Adjust the camera. Still good. Did you have a good weekend, Coach Kevin?
Yeah, it's alright.
Just all right?
Yeah.
Did you have a good weekend, Coach Kevin? There we go.
I've been arguing with a friend about the meaning of life.
The meaning of life?
Yeah.
Isn't that like 63 or something?
42.
42?
But that's like the meaning of everything. Different. It's like life, something, the meaning of everything. I don't know. It's not just life. I haven't actually read the book. I just know the reference. Anyway.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yeah. Saw
Douglas
the movie,
Adams?
Saw the movie on a date once, so.
So you didn't actually watch
So I
it?
didn't see the movie. But it was good. I liked it.
I had the worst. Have you ever had like the worst date movie ever?
No, I do have a designated date movie.
What's your designated date movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
That's it. That's really.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah. Well, no.
That's
no,
where the magic
no,
happens.
No, the thing is, right? Deceiving.
Oh, we have a PG-13 audience here,
wait,
so
yeah.
be careful.
It'll be with Shawshank. It's like a good enough movie that you can watch it pretty much any time it's on. It's one of those movies where if it's on TV, you'll watch it. But it's also a movie that you don't feel bad not watching, right? So if it turns out you're watching a movie, then you got a good movie to watch, and it's always good. You can always pick up something new from watching Shawshank Redemption another time.
Okay.
But if you don't watch it, that's fine.
Do you know what movie you should not watch if you are having a first date?
Schindler's List.
Schindler's List. Schindler's List is the worst movie you could possibly go to on any kind of date. For the first, second, 10th, that movie is.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That's a deal breaker right there. That one, I actually went on a first date with a girl, and we saw Schindler's. I was like, oh, Schindler's List, let's watch that.
Is that why that's
World War
in my
II?
head?
World War II. Did I already tell you this story? I'm sure I did.
Maybe. But it's funny that that's a rule in my head now.
Yeah, don't. That will be if you really don't like a girl and you're just kind of like going on a blind date.
Schindler's List.
Like that is the way to like just take all the
movie.
wind out of your sails right there. That movie is awful. I mean, it's a good movie, and but it's just not in any way good for a first date or 10th date.
Anyway, so we're talking about like the purpose of life.
Purpose of life, more life.
And
why does life have to have a purpose?
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, his point was like life's about making money, right? And then it's a good point, right?
Is it?
Yeah,
is it
good.
Really? The point of life? From whose perspective?
It's a common stance that people take, right? Like,
who is this person? Do they make a lot of money?
I'm not going to out them because they made good points that I can't express adequately enough.
Okay.
Right? And I don't know. It's a thought. For me, it's like kind of like the purpose of life is food, but But like sometimes the purpose of life is food. Sometimes it is money, right? And
The purpose of life.
Yeah, like why do stuff? Why do anything?
Yeah, but money is, you can't eat money.
Yeah, but you can spend money.
So
to
money
buy
is
food.
just an ends, or rather it's a means to other ends.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like saying cars are the purpose of life.
But
Yes, cars are awesome and we need them, but
Yeah.
we use them for something else. No one's like, I'm gonna work my whole life to get more cars.
But like maybe that's like sometimes cars are the meaning of life to some people.
If you don't have a car and you need a car, then the purpose of life may be for that limited duration of time to get a car. So you may be like when I was 16 years old and you get your license or you're about to get your license, you're like, I need a car,
Yeah.
right? Because in high school you need a car to be
Yeah.
cool or do whatever thing, you have that independence. Then yeah, then yes, I agree. The purpose of life may be to
See, my argument is like the car is like a focal point upon which to fixate, so that you can engage in the true purpose of life, like earning the car or like doing whatever it is to get the car. Like you have a place to go and then you go there, type thing. Oh. Like with jiu-jitsu, like that's kind of how I feel about jiu-jitsu, where like I get kind of, at this stage in my training, I get kind of turned off by the idea of training for something, right? Like
you are a training for training's sake person. Yes.
Right, like
For the love of training, just for the joy of training itself.
Yeah, like the purpose of doing jiu-jitsu is to do jiu-jitsu. You get better at jiu-jitsu so that you can do jiu-jitsu better. Right? Like, well, there's really like, you shouldn't be doing jiu-jitsu to make money. That would be a weird, like if
Some people do.
You could, but if making money is your goal, jiu-jitsu is probably not the most efficient way of doing it.
Unless you're really good at jiu-jitsu.
It happens, and sometimes it does.
Like John, right? He's really good at philosophy, but he's not so good at philosophy that he was ever going to make anywhere close to the type of money or achieve the type of fame or notoriety or.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Because he totally makes his
He's
money spouting philosophy. That's
yeah,
like
but it's
what
not
he
real
does.
philosophy. It's like the philosophy of jiu-jitsu.
It's real?
The thing is, you could be the best philosopher ever. You're still not going to get money.
Yeah.
Like even even the guys who are like the most famous philosophers, no one cares, right?
Yeah.
They have book deals. No one really reads them. Like 10 other philosophers read them.
Yeah.
And of those 10, probably only like maybe one actually understands what the other guy's saying.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they get it.
What's the fun of that?
What do you mean?
All I'm saying is, to your point, like you shouldn't use jiu-jitsu to make money. But if it's really your best option to make money,
Oh yeah.
why not use it to make money?
I guess, but like
It may not be the.
you shouldn't. No, it's like you shouldn't start doing jujitsu to make money.
No.
You shouldn't
that's-
start doing jujitsu.
No, I don't know. It's kind of like boxing, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's a bad idea.
like there's lots of people who do sports to make money.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who have not very many options, and sometimes a not great option is your best option.
There you go. Sure. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, but like for most people, jujitsu is not a great way to make money. Jujitsu is not.
It is for me, man. I'm just like printing money hand over fist. Let me tell you.
Jujitsu.
Big jiu-jitsu.
Jujitsu shouldn't be a way to get in shape, right? You don't do jujitsu to get in shape. Right?
Yes, you do. Lots of people
No,
do it.
no. If you do jiu-jitsu to get in shape, A, you're not doing jiu-jitsu, and B, you're probably not going to do jiu-jitsu long enough to actually get in
Why?
shape. Because you're going to quit, because you don't like jiu-jitsu.
Well, maybe you also like jiu-jitsu.
Then you're not doing it to get in shape. You're doing jiu-jitsu because you like
Maybe
jiu-jitsu,
you like it
and
both.
it so happens that you get in shape.
Well, why can't you do both? Why can't
No,
I say
I'm not
I
saying-
really
I'm
like
not saying
jiu-jitsu
you're not-
and I
I'm not
want to get in
saying-
shape?
I'm not saying you can't
These
do
are
both.
two things that go
I'm just
perfectly.
saying-
Like Reese's peanut butter.
I'm
Do
just
you like
saying-
the chocolate or you like the peanut butter?
If you do jiu-jitsu to get into shape, jiu-jitsu is probably not for you.
Well, let me ask you this. Can I like two things?
Yeah.
I can like two things at once?
Yeah.
Okay, how about three things? Can I like three things at once?
Yeah.
4, 5, 6, 7?
Uh-huh.
Lots of different things.
Yeah.
Now, if I find something that combines all of those things that I like,
That's really nice. That's a good place to start. That's a good reason to start something.
So if I
eventually-
want to get in shape,
Yeah,
I want to learn how to beat somebody's butt.
Uh-huh.
I want to learn just the joy of jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
right? Just the
Yeah, and
Right.
if you're doing jiu-jitsu just for those things, as soon as those things happen, you're gone.
what about no?
Yeah, because as soon as you get into shape,
But you're never actually
what do you mean?
forever in shape. It's not like you reach this point where you are like, oh, I'm in shape now. It's not like I'm 25 now, right? Like when you turn 25, you're 25.
No, like the people who do jiu-jitsu for self-defense. You know, they get good at self-defense and they leave. You
Yeah,
know?
you're never really good at self-defense.
Good
You're
enough.
probably okay at self-defense, and there's always room to be better.
There's always room, but it might not be worth it. You know.
So all I'm saying is like you
Diminishing
could,
returns. You reach that point
you
where it's
could,
like good
but
enough.
it doesn't necessarily mean you would.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I mean,
I came to jiu-jitsu for self-defense, and
Yeah.
I stuck around for a while.
But did you stick around because you did it for self-defense, or because you
Because I'm like a
'Cause you
lethal
enjoy
killing
the
machine right now,
process.
that's why.
did you enjoy the process?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Not always.
It's not always. That'd be ridiculous.
My hip didn't enjoy the process, let me tell you.
There's a word for it. Do you want to know the word?
The word for what?
This
Bird?
thing I was thinking of. Autotelic.
Autotelic. Oh, this
Yeah.
is fancy.
Yeah.
The end of it itself is the end is of itself.
Yes.
Telos from the Greek, the
What's-
end,
Oh,
teleological.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Telos,
Yeah, we're like,
which is for Aristotle and Plato, I guess would be happiness, eudaimonia, something like
I
that.
don't know. I picked it up from a friend of mine. I didn't pick it up from Aristotle or Socrates.
No?
He probably got it from somewhere around.
They got it from them. Got it from the Greeks. That's where I came from.
But you know, like jiu-jitsu should be like that. After a certain point, you know. Otherwise,
Really? Should it?
I think if you want to do jiu-jitsu for a long time, you're gonna have to learn to love doing jiu-jitsu for the sake of doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, especially when you get old and you start sucking at jiu-jitsu. And then it's all about the joy of jiu-jitsu. I'm just here for jiu-jitsu. That's a good attitude to have.
I don't know. Goals are important, but I think it's also important to just, you know, enjoy the grind.
Enjoy the grind. I agree with you. You should enjoy just enjoying it. The purpose of life is to live. Enjoy life. I was feeling so good yesterday. I was jogging, and then my hip was like, what are you doing?
You always do that.
I always do that. I always feel like, oh, I feel really good right now. Let's just push a little bit harder. And then my body's like, dude, you know it's gonna happen.
Your hip wants you to tell your doctor.
I gotta get my cortisone injection. Oh, did you see the fight?
Oh, I saw.
I only saw the highlights. I don't buy UFC, especially because that card was awful.
I saw the highlight.
I mean, it was so sweet. I could watch Conor McGregor getting knocked out, like, forever.
But he always just looks sad afterwards.
So what do you think? Is he done?
Mm.
Is he done?
He seems like he's already made enough money. Unless
He's definitely made enough money.
unless he has like a lawsuit. I don't see why.
Well, you know, he's actually being sued. Speaking of lawsuits, for sexual assault of a young lady in Dublin. So
Is he moving?
I don't know. You can't get away. You can't. I mean, you could move, but you're just gonna get extradited.
Does he have like a? Why did he fight this one? Does he have a contract? Does he have to?
He has more fights on his contract.
Hmm.
I mean, he doesn't have to do anything. He could just retire, which is what all these fighters are doing, you know. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. He doesn't have to fight. He probably just wants to fight.
That seems
It
weird.
gives you something. I mean, if you think about it, he's a young guy,
Is he?
and he's got all the money he could ever want. So he's probably bored. I would be bored. At some point, you're bored.
But he's already done this.
It's what he loves. I mean, I do believe that he loves fighting. I think he loves all the attention. I think he loves being the focus and like talking trash and being like in the ring. I think it's like for a lot of athletes, you see it, especially very high profile athletes who have all that adoration and attention. You know, that's a hell of a thing to leave behind. You know, voluntarily in the prime of your career.
But it's not like everyone stopped remembering.
And he is like the biggest star of stars. The one thing that you have to say about him is that whether you like him or not, and I respect him in terms of his abilities, but I'm not like a fan of his, right? Is that he electrifies any card that he is on and any fight that he is in, you know? And it's a hard thing. I mean, if he's firing up the fans, just imagine what he's experiencing.
I don't know. Fighting's cool, I guess.
I'm not even sure he does it. I'm sure he does enjoy the fighting, but even if you don't enjoy the fighting and the challenge of it, which I can't imagine he doesn't, just having that adulation, man, that's probably better than any drug you could want to do.
You would still have that adulation.
No, it's not the same as when you walk into the arena and then the crowd just goes berserk. You know, like, have you been to a concert?
I went to a Dave Matthews Band concert.
Okay, that's not the same. But there is an energy level in a crowd, and I think it is palpable, especially when you get to not like a big enough star. And he's, for a fight, and especially fight fans, they're maniacs anyway, so.
But then why do you lose?
I mean, that's a good question. Just because you do it doesn't mean you're always, I mean, he's already been beaten a couple times, so it doesn't.
Not like that.
Well, this is my question of like, is he done? You know, no one, I mean, I like Dustin. I mean, Dustin Poirier is pretty good. I don't think he's like, he's no Khabib.
Yeah.
You know, I think if Khabib fought Dustin, he'd murder Dustin. I don't think that would be much of a contest at all. It might go a little bit longer, but. So what do you think? Is Conor now done? Like, is he gonna keep fighting? No. I think the aura has been punctured.
He just looked sad at the end.
I think anybody now at least will have the, you know, like when you first go up against somebody, or you're going up against somebody who's never been beaten, right? And he's just murdered everybody in the ring. Like, that's intimidating mental power, right? And once you've seen that person get knocked out a couple times, you're like, this guy bleeds real blood, and he can be knocked out, and I have a chance, right? You know.
Confidence goes a long way, further than people think.
I mean, just having that belief.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see like Josie Aldo get knocked out in a second, and you just see like the last 10 dudes that came before you all just got knocked out, you know, with very little effort.
Yeah.
Your morale is going to be low, you know, if you're not already mentally, you know, very strong. What you saw, I remember there were a lot of guys who were pretty skilled, but what they would do is they'd just go like kamikaze style. Like, I'm just gonna go for the knockout, you know, like that. You know, hey, maybe I have a puncher's chance, and so therefore I'll just take some wild swings, and then he kills him.
What I don't understand is that with Conor's thing, like, it was always about the money, right? Like, his main thing was just like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna make as much money as all of you guys, right? And then I'm gonna dip out. And then after the Mayweather fight, like, you know, he should have been good, you know, like that was probably more money than he would ever make with the UFC, right? But now he's still fighting for the UFC, but for like how much?
I wonder how much he had to pay in taxes for that. I'll tell you what, the EU and Ireland are not exactly low tax, not tax havens.
You know?
And so I wonder, you know, he probably made what, north of 100 million?
Yeah. So like,
you slash that in half at 75 or 89. It's still a lot of money.
yeah.
I mean, he's had a whiskey company. I don't know what else he's invested in. You never know how those athletes
Well,
do not have have a good record on
was he the
business
one throwing the
investments.
chairs at
Yeah,
the bus?
yeah,
So,
he did that.
So several grand in cocaine investments.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, you don't know. There's like a lot of PR that goes on about how much people make,
Yeah.
but the reality is not always match that.
Yeah, but like compared to the payout from any UFC fight that you can have, right? Like he's going from making like what I would consider good money in fighting to back to UFC levels of money in fighting. You know, which is like.
Well, we don't know what he's getting off the gate.
That's true, but I feel like it's nowhere near like 100 million.
Definitely not near 100 million, but we don't know. It could have been 20 million. 20 million is a pretty good payday. I mean, if you have 100, let's say you have 100 million, and someone's like, all right, well, you can go fight. You'll spend 2 months getting ready for this thing, and I'm gonna give you another 20 million. That's pretty.
You think it's 20?
Hmm?
You think it's 20?
Could be.
Could be. I'd be interested in finding out how much his time is worth now.
Well, I mean, you consider that was that a I don't think that was a title fight.
I don't believe
Was
so.
it? So it's 3 rounds. So I mean, it's 15 minutes. Let's say you got 10 million. I mean, it's hard to pass up 10 million bucks
Yeah.
for. I mean, if you
But at the same time, you could walk away and just like market yourself as you know who he is before he got his.
well,
face
the
punched.
fact that he's facing a lot of criminal charges makes him toxic to a lot of big brands. Like a Nike is not like so
that would be the reason
a
why. he has to
Reebok.
fight.
You know, I guess he has to be. I mean, he could be outside the ring. He can be sponsored right by whoever he wants. Just can't wear that stuff in the ring.
Yeah.
So, does Nike sponsor anybody?
I thought they sponsored everyone who's fighting unless they had something special. But he's special, so.
Well, I mean, I don't know what his contract is, but whatever it is, I'm sure if I'm Reebok, I don't actually want to be, It's actually pretty interesting that he hasn't, I mean, I get it why John Jones is not a popular, but he could be a popular household name, right? He could be one of those guys. And Conor is definitely a household name, but he hasn't crossed over to mainstream sponsorship deals, which is saying something when you consider like, Kobe and Tiger Woods all recovered from their, sordid affairs and things,
Became household heroes. Yeah, I don't know. He's not.
All I'm saying is that it's tough to pass up someone, and maybe he's bored. He doesn't strike me as the type that's. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll go and become some sort of like captain of industry, type of person. But just saying, like, hey, here's 10 mil. Will you come fight?
I don't know. I feel like if you go from like 100 million fight.
But I think he always knew that he was never going to see that money again, right? Like.
Yeah,
It was a
I don't know.
stunt.
If he didn't become a captain of business after the Mayweather fight, then he's not like
He's still young.
he's not generating more income to do in the future. Would be my guess.
I don't know. I'm not surprised that he wants to fight. Even if it doesn't it's not as economically enticing as it might have been before Mayweather.
Well, my only guess would be like if he was still like trying to build up his brand or his image.
You look at like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson made a lot more money, and he pissed it all away and went to jail.
Yeah.
So you can only buy so many Bentleys and so many Tigers and so many estates before the money runs out.
How many times can you get in a ring before it's no longer?
How many times what?
Can you get in a ring and?
Hey, everyone's got their own like mileage.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these guys, they fought like Cerrone. He was fighting amazing a number of fights per year, and now he's like gone. I mean,
Yeah.
he got his payday against
Conor.
Conor. I think he got knocked out in the first round.
Yeah.
For his trouble.
Yeah.
So
Weird.
So California, has lifted the restrictions.
So we can eat off the
Statewide.
sidewalk again?
No, but Santa Clara has not. It just means that we go back to the county by county.
Oh.
So I don't know where Santa Clara is. I think we're still pretty high. But, I mean, at least we're making some progress here, right?
Everyone I know is starting to get vaccinated.
Is Parker starting to what?
Get vaccinated?
Vaccinated. Really? Everyone you know?
They're starting to.
Really? Who do
I
you know? Are they all healthcare professionals?
Yeah.
That's why. My father-in-law got it. He's 70.
Oh, that's 4. Yeah, I know an old person. Yeah. So it's fun. Progress.
Progress.
What are we gonna do when everything goes back to normal?
We're gonna go back to normal. We're gonna train. Oh, speaking of training, I ran into Malcolm. So he has this knows this guy who's like 20, who was a hopeful for the U.S. judo team. I don't think he does it anymore, but he says he lives around here and he wants to come train.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, you told me.
I told him, make arrangements.
Yeah, I think he spoke to me a while ago.
Okay, well,
That'd be fun.
yeah. I was like, Kevin really wants to do a lot of stand-up, so that'll be really good. The kid's about 200 pounds,
Nice.
and he's 20, but he says he's very respectful.
Mhm.
Very, very polite and respectful young man.
That's good.
I said, Kevin really wants to learn a lot of judo, so you might want to keep those crash pads handy.
That'll be fine.
Hope he has good aim. But he actually, what Malcolm said was that he really doesn't want to do judo. He wants to learn jiu-jitsu, so
Perfect.
you might have to persuade him, might have to talk him into doing stand-up with you. I know that's what you want.
You can't make me wear a gi. So,
I don't think he needs to. I mean, those guys, they're so good. Whether you have a gi or no gi, they're not really good. I think you wrestle too, so.
I'm sure he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Yeah, I'm down.
Give you a new look.
What? What, me and Cast?
No, I mean like a new training partner.
Oh yeah.
You know, somebody who can maybe give you a little bit of a. He'll have that youthful exuberance.
We've got youths on our team.
Who?
Ty
No
Ty
200-pound youths.
Ty's not 200 pounds. Ty came in.
Oh yeah, he's not 200 pounds either.
He's youthy.
He's youthy, but he's not 200 pounds,
Yeah.
and he's not an elite level athlete.
Ethan's 200 pounds and youthy, but not an elite athlete. Eh.
I mean, even a youthy, like 160-pound, 125 elite athlete
Yeah.
is like another kind of creature. Is
Yeah.
another.
We'll see.
Oh, you know what? Speaking of this type of thing,
You can't make me stand up.
is that's well, no, he could actually probably lift you off the grab. Have you ever heard the name Tony Mandarich? It actually goes way back to, remember we used to talk about steroids.
Yeah.
So Tony Mandarich was in the 80s. He was in the same draft class as like 4 or 5 Hall of Famers who all went, like Barry Sanders, Deion Sanders, Derek Thomas,
What, for what?
Troy Aikman
Who are these
for
people?
football.
Oh.
Sorry, you don't really know football. Anyway, he was a guy, he was at Michigan State. He was like 320 or something. Just giant dude who got drafted, I think number 2 or number 3 in the NFL draft that year. And they called him, what did they call him? The Incredible Bulk was his nickname. Does this sound, I think he may have been from, no, he wasn't from Indiana. But he was like this giant dude.
I just really
Think
like that.
Brock Lesnar. Think like that's the type of like athlete he was.
Yeah.
And so then he got drafted by the Green Bay Packers. He shows up to camp, and he's got like a 4-year contract. He holds out from camp because he wants more money, and he hates Green Bay, so he talks all this trash because he didn't want to be at a small market. They don't cave in, whatever. I don't know if they give him money or not, but eventually he gets on the field, and he sucks. He's like awful, right? And they showed this clip of him getting. I don't know if you know who Reggie Jackson is.
I've heard that.
Reggie Jackson is like, and he was on Green Bay, but he started off on the Eagles back when I was a kid. And Reggie Jackson was the man, and he would just destroy people. He was a defensive end, I think. And so they showed video of like Reggie Jackson just like wrecking this guy on national TV. And so then they called him, they did a thing like 2 years later on, it was on a Sports Illustrated card, that was when they called him the Incredible Bulk. And then 2 years later, they called him like the Incredible Bust, right? Because he sucked.
Wait, this is the guy who did the steroid transformation?
Huh?
Was this the guy who did all the steroids?
So he's a big dude, right? He starts, he's not like me and then like gets to become 300 pounds by doing steroids. He wasn't just doing steroids though. He was doing like horse steroids.
But he started going crazy, right?
Eventually he went crazy. So what he said was like they almost never got tested at Michigan when he was in college. And so he's doing all these steroids and all these drugs, and just he never got popped.
Yeah.
And so he he does like these incredible numbers in the combine. Like he bench pressed 225 like 40 times.
Yeah.
And he ran like a 4.6 or something as a lineman. I mean, I could never run a 4.6 in my entire life, no matter how fit I was, right? Like that's like incredible. And he's 300 pounds.
But then he jumped off cycle?
So anyway, so then he gets to Green Bay. They're starting out the testing, he gets a little bit more, and he's hearing all these things where it's just like, oh, it's just because he's steroids. And he's like, okay, I'm just gonna quit steroids. So he just quits, and he's like, a couple weeks or a month after I quit steroids, like, I have to start taking these painkillers.
Yeah.
Because it's so painful.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm pumping painkillers into me like every day. And he said he would actually, like, he didn't want anybody to find out that he was taking this stuff, so he would hide it in his jockstrap.
Hide what?
The bottle of needle.
He was injecting painkillers into himself?
Yes.
Like mid-practice?
Yes.
He had a hypodermic needle next to his jock during football practice?
Yes.
Okay.
So he said he had never, in his 3 or 4 years in the NFL, like, and he dropped like 40 pounds in his first year.
Yeah.
And he was just like a shell of his former self.
Yeah.
And he's like, he drank, he's doing these he's totally addicted to these painkillers, the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, he washes out of the league, he goes home, and he's just like a wreck. And eventually he pulls himself together. He said actually his older brother who also played football, had some sort of cancer, it was terminal cancer, and the only thing he could think about during that whole time was that his brother had a free, unlimited morphine drip that he wished that he could have.
Yeah.
That was like his whole thing. Like so anyway, he pulls himself out of this, and to his credit, he gets back into the NFL. He goes and plays for the Colts for like 3 years. More or less redeems himself. Like at least, whatever. He was a good player.
Yeah.
Right? There was no doubt. I mean, he probably would not have been drafted as high as he was if he hadn't been all souped up. But he was still a legit ball player, right? But of course, he is. His name lives in infamy.
Yeah.
Now, and even though like I just watched an interview with him, and he was pretty, he was a sober guy. I mean, he's like, I made a lot of mistakes and whatever. But it reminded me of the conversations that we had about, steroid use and the cost that can be. Now he's like an example. I mean, obviously he's done a lot.
Yeah.
And not just steroids. He's taken like equipoise, I think it was called. Have you heard of this stuff? It was stuff they used for racehorses.
Interesting.
That's what he was taking. So, anyway,
I'll do it.
but I was also thinking, the problem with that stuff is that no matter what you accomplish, even if you never get caught, which you probably will, is that you will always know in your mind, in your heart, that you cheated.
No.
Yeah, and you'll always kind of walk around. Now, some people don't have a conscience, right? Like, and they're not like bothered by these types of things. But I think there's something to be said for the idea of like I would never personally, right? I would never want to think that anything that I accomplished was because I cheated, right? That I hadn't actually accomplished anything, Basically, I just cheated my way to that point. And you see this. You see guys like Andy Pettit and Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds, and they have all these, Sammy Sosa, and who's the other guy, Mark McGuire, Tony Mann. These guys who they accomplished a lot, and they probably would be Hall of Famers, right? Pete Rose, he wasn't a drug addict, but they would be Hall of Famers, but they cheated, and so they're now like outcasts, and that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks, I mean, they actually are not even getting recognized for the things that they did do well. And it's like, even if you don't wind up being a giant bust like that one guy, who was at best without steroids, an okay NFL, which is still amazing, right? Like,
being an okay NFL player is still, having a 7-year career in the NFL is above average.
How do you feel about the idea that there's, within every sport, an acceptable level of cheating? That as long as you can get away with it, it's okay.
I mean, so what happens is so that's what happened with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire, and a lot of these guys, is that steroids were an acceptable part and tolerated within the sport until they weren't.
Yeah.
They were still against the rules, right? It wasn't that they were like okay, right? They were against the rules, but they could. It was easy. Baseball, the MLB, the organization or the teams would look the other way. They didn't care as long as you were bringing people into the seats and selling tickets. Yeah. But at some point, then the thing.
Yeah. As soon as that model stops.
And then what they do to those guys, they kick them to the curb. Yeah. And they said, hey, you guys are cheaters.
But you can't condemn them for.
No, I'm not condemning them. What I'm saying is, for them, if from their own perspective, they have been shut out of a sport, and they are not being recognized for the accomplishments that they achieved in the sport, that they've dedicated their whole lives to, because they cheated. Yeah. Right? I'm not condemning them or saying like, oh, they shouldn't have done it, or I wouldn't have done it, or saying like they deserve any of this. What I'm saying is like, when you do this type of stuff, there's always the footsteps behind you. Yeah. You never know when somebody is going to out you, or even if it's acceptable today, or tolerated today, that tomorrow may not be the same. And so you're always going to talk about the asterisk in sports, right? Like you have that asterisk. Yeah. Like Mark McGuire, he has the single season, I think, I'm not sure if he still has it, single season home run record. But then there's the asterisk behind it. Yeah. You're always stained. You'll always be held in some lower regard because you are labeled correctly as a cheater. Okay. But what if you couldn't? That's your legacy. But you're poisoning your own legacy.
Your name wouldn't even be in the conversation.
That's not true. That's the truly sad part. No. Now there's a lot of guys who they wouldn't, maybe they would not have ever made it. Right? Maybe that being able to do the drugs. The majority of you guys. Maybe, I don't know about majority because I don't know how prevalent it is now.
Most of the people don't win when they play
all I'm saying is there may be a group of people who make it for a year or two in the NFL because they did some drugs. Right? They cheated somehow. A year or two in the NFL is not that impressive. I mean, it's impressive you're a good athlete, but that's not a career. Yeah. That's like winning a small lottery prize. Okay. So that in itself to me is
not worth it.
I wouldn't think it's worth it.
And I would say
it's not a good.
And right now you need steroids.
Not to me.
You need steroids to reach that basic not worth it level.
For some people don't need it. Some people don't.
Sure.
Not everyone tests positive, right? I mean, there are clean athletes somewhere, theoretically. But my point is just, regardless, I'm not condemning anyone, right? Everyone does their own thing. You make your own decisions. But to me, what would dissuade me, among many other reasons, is that I would never feel comfortable, right, doing that, and then thinking all this could just be taken away. All of your achievements now have all been kind of put on this shelf with all the other stained, broken, ruined, and shameful things that people have done in the sport. Right? It will never be Roger Clemens, great Hall of Fame pitcher, incredible numbers. It'll be steroid Roger Clemens. That will be your legacy.
The pioneer.
Not really even, but you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. It's I know not everyone would agree with this analysis, but for me, I'm that's an awful thing. That's an awful thing.
That goes back to why are you doing the thing? Are you doing the thing to make money, or are you doing the thing to be the best at the thing?
You can do
Or are you doing the thing to be famous? And if all of those things align, then you've got a great thing, and you should probably.
Those guys aren't allowed back. They're not allowed. They're not going to get into Canton or wherever they're going. They're not going to be invited to any the festivities and the Super Bowl. They don't get to. They're not part of the community.
Yeah, but if I was
outcasts.
If I was hey,
they're shunned.
I'll give you $30 million if you take steroids. Would you do it?
30 million?
Yeah.
Just
so
to
all
do
you
steroids?
have to do is just
shoot a couple steroids?
Yeah, just do the thing that you were already going to do anyway. just stronger, better, faster.
So I guess the analysis would be, right, where am I in the right? Am I a high level prospect that's going to get drafted anyway? Then no, I'm not going to take the steroids because I don't need them.
Yeah, steroids are for people
Am
who are not at that point.
Am I at the end of my Hall of Fame career?
Steroids are not for those people either.
Am I at the end of my Hall of Fame career and I'm trying to squeeze out? Where I've already made millions, I'm trying to squeeze out 2 or 3 more
Probably
years.
not the best idea.
That's what they did.
Steroids aren't for that.
That's what they did.
Yeah, they could do that. It's still not. That's not what it was for. You know, you could give steroids to a 60-year-old dude, and it's still probably not the best way to use that drug. You know.
I don't know. I was trying to get steroids out of my doctor.
You can point out exceptions to the rule and people who don't need them, but you know, for the most part, like.
Well, that's what I'm saying about this guy. So I start off with the Mandarich guy, who's the guy who he would have made it into the league. He was good enough. He would have been drafted, not number 2, not top 10, maybe somewhere in the middle rounds, and he would have had like a regular old career.
Why would you want that?
Because it's awesome to have if he hadn't have done drugs, right? He probably would have had a 10 to 12 year career in the NFL. He probably would have. He could have had like a pretty legit career.
Maybe.
And now he's a joke. He's like a sad.
Yeah, but we're talking about him.
Yeah, but in a bad way.
Yeah, but
like no one's like, I want my son to grow up like Tony Mandarich.
Yeah, but like they're talking about him.
Yeah, but they talk about Al Capone too. But like, he's a criminal and an evil person.
Yeah, but Al Capone's minus the syphilis, kind of awesome.
Yeah. You talk about values and
Al
qualities
Capone
of people.
Gave back to his community.
What about it?
I don't know. I'm just being silly.
I'm just saying too. That's another reason why steroids are bad.
You know who typically denounces steroids like this?
People who have no reason to take them.
No,
because they
people-
never have to make the decision.
People who are doing the steroids. Do you have something you want to tell us?
Huh?
Did you just get on the sauce?
I wish I. Let me tell you, if I were on the sauce right now, it would be, first of all, it would be totally legal. But second of all, because like I'm a lawyer, I don't want to lose my license. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It'd be like as a lawyer, you're kind of given all these temptations because you're given people trust you, and there can be a heavy temptation to cheat to win a case.
Yeah.
And in different ways, like withholding documents or making stuff up or lying, and that can be tempting. Stealing, just straight up stealing money.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. Lawyers are given a lot of trust. They're given a lot of power over people's finances sometimes or whatever, business dealings, and they abuse that trust. And when you do that, whatever it is, you're going to always have to look over your shoulder. You never know when the knock on the door is going to be the FBI.
Those are not similar though, because like stealing money is more of a direct harm towards a person compared to like I'm just doing steroids. The direct harm is on myself, and then you just happen to not be.
I'm just drawing the analogy. You're right. It's not a perfect analogy, but I'm saying like when you do these things, you're going to spend the rest of your life wondering when the other shoe is going to drop.
You think so?
Yeah. And maybe you forget for a while. Maybe you forget.
I mean, after a certain point, like you're 65 and a bunch of reporters come up to your door. Sir, we realized 40 years ago you took steroids. Great, like you want me to write a book about it? Like, it's after a certain point, like you did your thing, you did the thing, you got what you wanted out of it. Maybe but all I'm saying is maybe that 65-year-old doesn't care anymore. I bet they do. And I'll bet you to get disgraced in front of your grandkids. If you're willing to take him in the first place.
Yeah, but you change. See, this is the thing. This is the other thing about Mandarich that I admire him, right? Because he gets up, he comes out of his
husk,
relative obscurity, right? I mean, nobody really talks about him. We're probably the only people right now talking about this guy.
Well,
but he comes out and he fesses up and he says, "I shouldn't have done all that. I was a terrible person." And he's changed. He's a different perspective because he's 50 years old, 60 years old now, right?
Did he release a book or something?
I don't know, probably. But, like what you think is important when you're 19 years old is not what's important when you're 39 or 40 years
God, I
old.
would hope not.
Yeah, well, so, but the thing is, like, you know, like, that's the problem, is like, when you tell people to do or not, or give them advice, you know, it's hard for that person when they're 20 to realize the impact it's going to have on their life when they're 30 or 40 or 50. Because these things don't really go away. Like, you get the label, and you suffer those consequences.
I think that if you're not going to take steroids, the reason shouldn't be that you might feel guilty about it.
No, not even feel guilty. I'm not even saying guilty. I'm saying there are things that you might want to do when you get older that you will not be allowed to do anymore. Right? Because you will no longer be a respected member of that community. You'll be an outcast.
That's only if you get caught.
But you think that's my whole point. You have to worry about being caught that whole time and then being disgraced.
I guess. But at least with
And then you
steroids,
get
like, they're not going to spontaneously figure out that you used to take steroids. Someone's going to have to, like, take some blood.
I mean, that's what Roger Cummins thought. That's what Barry Bonds thought.
That's fair.
You
I
know?
don't know.
And people still love those guys, right? Like, some people don't care.
Some of them.
Some of them do. I don't. I mean, I never loved them.
I don't know. I
Anyway.
feel
They're
like
just baseball players.
if it
to
was
me.
like socially acceptable, like if everybody in my gym was doing steroids, like I'd probably do steroids. It's just like
well, that's sad.
no, it's just
Have
like
a little respect for yourself.
I
Why do you have to do? If
I-
everyone, like my mom used to say, if everyone jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge too?
yeah, it depends on the bridge, but yeah, probably like they're all jumping.
It's a
It
bridge
must
to
be awesome.
nowhere. You're gonna
They
jump off
might
and
know
you're
something that I don't. you know?
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, they might.
don't.
You know,
That's the
I'm
problem.
not going to completely.
Have some character.
I'm not going to completely.
Have something like some integrity for
I have
yourself.
integrity. I
Do
have
you?
some- I
Doesn't
have
sound
some
like it. If you just
What?
say I do whatever
I didn't
the
say-
other meatheads in my gym do.
No, like with steroids, this is a thing that like, you know, steroids is one of those things that I don't do it because it's socially unacceptable. Every other consequence I'm okay with.
Really?
Yeah.
What if you got cancer and you died when you were
Probably-
like?
Yeah, like what if you could get cancer without doing steroids? I would probably not.
That's a much lower risk.
I would probably not.
It's like a lot lower. It's like smoking. Well, smoking because you get cancer for anything. Yeah, but if you smoke, there's like an excellent chance you're going to get cancer.
Yeah, so I
Whereas if
try
you
not
don't
to
smoke,
smoke.
there's probably a much lower chance.
Yeah.
Ergo, don't smoke.
Yeah, don't smoke more than you should.
No, don't smoke.
Yeah.
There's no should.
No, like
It's like don't smoke. If you don't want to have cancer, don't smoke. If you want
Sometimes-
emphysema, don't smoke.
sometimes a cigarette.
You know what chances that
is
I'm going to get
appropriate.
emphysema?
Huh?
You know what the chances I'm going to get emphysema?
I don't know.
Zero.
No, that's,
Zero.
that is not true.
Zero.
Your chances.
Zero.
is
I'm probably
not
jinxing
zero.
myself. I'm
It's
going
not
to get
zero.
emphysema now.
It's not zero though.
It's
lower
low.
than
It's
lower
low.
than probably mine. But
Low.
no, like there's a time and a place for cigarettes. There's a time and a place for steroids.
Yeah, you know what there's a good time for cigarettes?
After
No. No, when you're in front of the firing squad and they're like, here,
That's a
have
good
last-
time.
Yeah, then you're
That's a
going
good
to
time.
die anyway. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So then you know if you
But if you're like
your
a regular
choice-
person
no,
who's
if
got their whole life in
if
front
your
of them, you
choice
probably
is
shouldn't be
between
smoking.
if your choice is between dying and getting really good at jiu-jitsu,
I don't understand what that analogy is.
get good at jiu-jitsu, take some steroids, you know, like
No, false.
Why not?
False. Why are you giving this impression to people?
no, that's
You
not.
should, even for the purpose of argument, you shouldn't be like, oh, you should take steroids.
No,
to
I'm
get
not
jiu-jitsu.
saying- I'm not
That's like the
saying-
dumbest thing. You know what it is? That's like saying, go rob a bank so you can get rich.
No.
Yes, it is. That is a great analogy. That's the best analogy I've come up with probably in a long time.
People rob banks though.
Yeah, they get caught, they go to jail.
Yeah, I'm not saying you should.
There are
do
always
steroids.
consequences
I'm not,
to your
yeah,
actions.
There are. I'm not saying you should do steroids. I'm saying that.
That's what you just said. You
No,
should. If
no,
you want to
I'm
get good
saying-
at jiu-jitsu, you should. That's exactly
Sorry,
what you said.
what I meant to say was, if I wanted to really get good at jiu-jitsu, I would take steroids. Like if that was my number one goal.
That wouldn't really be making you good at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it would.
It would be making you good at cheating. You'd be a cheater, and you would know in your heart that you're cheating, and then you would actually do worse at jiu-jitsu because you had a cheating heart.
No, you only compete at like
I don't even think
tournaments
you-
where they all do steroids.
You know what?
ADCC.
I wonder how many people. Yeah, they all do steroids.
Yeah, like if you want to do jiu-jitsu
I
professionally.
don't know. I don't think. You think Lucas O'Brien does
I don't
steroids?
know.
I don't think he does.
I'm
I
not
don't know. Come on, he's a
making
nice guy. What
No,
about
it's just
Bernardo Faria? He doesn't do steroids. Marcelo didn't do steroids. You think?
I don't know.
Are you trying to say Marcelo does steroids?
Marcelo competed like 10 years ago. Times are changing.
Steroids were around 10 years ago.
Yeah. But there was still like, jiu-jitsu was small enough to where there was still like kind of a feel where the average person, if they trained hard enough and they did their best, that maybe they would be lucky enough that if that was their day, they could come home with a gold or a silver.
You know, I look at this kid, William Tackett, who's like 18 years old. He doesn't look like he does steroids.
Probably not. Good for
I
him.
mean, I'm saying, like, you could be really good at jiu-jitsu and not do steroids.
Yeah. You could be really good at anything and not be the best.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm sure he's great.
He's very good.
Yeah, I'm sure he's great. I think if you wanna, if
You don't.
making
My point
money
is that you could be
off of
very, very
jiu-jitsu.
good.
yeah,
and
you
not
can be
do
very
steroids.
good, but you're not gonna make money in
And I
jiu-jitsu
don't think
until
that
you're
doing
the best.
steroids is necessarily going to make you
Yeah, well,
better.
yeah, well.
No, I don't think it
Yeah,
will.
if you want to make money, you take steroids, you go smash
What money?
people at tournaments.
What money?
You get sponsorships.
What money?
Sponsorship money.
That's not very. They don't give you money in sponsorships. They give you like free geese
No,
and
no,
rash
like, if
guards.
you want real sponsorship money.
Like who? Who has real sponsorship money?
Galval, Gordon.
For what?
Galval is Muscle Farm. Gordon, I don't know what Gordon does, but I'm sure
He used to do Muscle Farm.
Yeah. So.
How much money do you think they pay him? It's not a lot. I bet you Gordon makes 99% of his
No,
money
that's what I'm
off of
saying. Like,
AVD
none of
sales
this
or
anywhere.
instructional sales.
None of it anywhere is a lot of money. But for some people.
Okay, so there you go.
But for some people.
So this is the other part of it, which is like, no matter how good at jiu-jitsu you get, you're probably still not going to make the kind of money
Yeah.
that you would make as a
That is a
mediocre
true
athlete in the
statement.
NFL.
You've got what other people like to call options, right? Not everybody has those. So
I mean,
and maybe
just
even
the
if
option
they
that I have is because I.
even if they had the options, every person is limited by their ability to see the options.
Well, this is true.
Right?
Yes,
And so
that's
if
true.
You know, if all you see is people making money through jiu-jitsu, like that's going to be what you set your mind to, and
Maybe.
if that's your pathway.
I mean, I just look at somebody like Andre Galvao and I say, you can do it naturally, okay? And Gordon, and you just use those examples.
I'm not saying
and
you can't be a good competitive jiu-jitsu person, but if you want to be the best in the sport, there is no person that I can think of who is both the best and I could be like, that person hasn't taken any steroids ever. Like the best of the best. All the best.
Who's the
people
best?
are the best.
Hodger. I bet you Hodger never did steroids during his gi career.
During his geek career. Specific. Like, you know, there are rumors floating about like the people, I don't want to say names, but
Don't
it's
say any
just-
names.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I haven't heard of anybody who's like top notch.
Top notch.
Like, and if you're doing jujitsu to make
What do I Floyd Payne do? He's top notch.
I'm picturing a super jacked guy on that. Is that right? Alright, yeah.
What about Atos has a lot of natty guys, right? Like Hulk. I mean, Hulk is 100% natty.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Please don't hurt me, Hulk, if you're watching this. You know?
There are natty people in every gym, but like, I don't know. I just think it's just getting to that point where the market is so saturated that if you want to stand out, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to use every.
How about you stand out
resource.
by like being a good person?
You could,
respects
but
themselves and
but
doesn't do
if
steroids.
that's your market, you're not gonna do well in competitive jiu-jitsu.
Here's my take on this is that it almost doesn't matter at this point. You know, it's like the UFC. You can have a good career as long as you're entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know when I look at the top people in, you know, gi, especially gi, right? None of them are like, I don't think any of them actually are doing or like benefiting that much from like actually winning the worlds in the gi. Like unless you're winning like 5 times, like if you're a 5-time champion, like
then it's fine.
okay, now maybe people care.
Yeah.
Or maybe if you're an American, you've won 3 or 4 or 5 times, like then people might start paying attention to you.
Yeah.
But I don't know that, I don't get the sense that, now, you know, if you're no gi, right, like it's almost the same thing. Unless you've won Abu Dhabi,
Yeah.
like absolute, nobody really cares. It almost comes down to, like, are you fun to watch? Are you, like you look at like a Keenan Cornelius, and maybe he's not the best example because he's a really smart guy.
Yeah.
And maybe he does do steroids. I wouldn't be surprised if he did either.
I would be surprised if he did.
But he's like a super technician, right? And he's fun to watch. He's funny. He's a good personality, right? I enjoy watching his videos. I think
His videos are good. His jiu-jitsu's boring, I think.
I mean, no, I like watching his jiu-jitsu. I
It's
think
technical.
he's very innovative, very
Yeah.
technical guy.
He's just slow. He
And-
moves very slow.
Well, the beautiful thing about his game is that like the vast majority of jiu-jitsu athletes, recreational, are not good athletes,
Yeah.
right?
that's
So like he has an appeal, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm slow and not athletic, like which is a lie, right? He's not unathletic. He's just compared to the other guys in his division, not athletic,
Yeah.
right? He's the least athletic.
Yeah.
So he has to make up for it with intelligence. He goes back to that old mindset in jiu-jitsu or belief in jiu-jitsu that like, hey, I can have a trick or I can have a technique that will neutralize someone else's superior athleticism.
Yeah.
And so he has that appeal. Other people can make something a name for themselves, winning, right, and becoming a champion. But over time, that in and of itself has a very limited shelf life. There are a lot of guys who have had great jiu-jitsu, straight up sport jiu-jitsu careers that nobody really cares about anymore. Because there's a new, Gordon Ryan is now the new hotness. 10 years ago that was Rafael Lovato Jr., right? Without all the, without the social media presence.
Like,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
isn't it like I would guess if I were to make a guess, it would be like a pendulum, right? Like you go back and forth between like tricky technical people, and then every once in a while you just get people who can come in and just smash through all that.
the thing is that I don't know that there's that many guys who come in and can make, even the guys who do just smash people, very rarely, like I think of like Jacare, right? Jacare was a guy who was just a physical specimen in the sport. And I'm not saying that he wasn't a good technician. I mean, he did jiu-jitsu. He's very good at jiu-jitsu. But he was never recognized for being a technical person,
Yeah.
right? He was an athlete. And there's a lot of things that are packed up into that are unfair. But he's an MMA fighter now. He released DVDs. I remember I watched them. But he's not like built a reputation of being like, like a long-standing within the jiu-jitsu community of being like, oh, we should all watch, Jacare's new instructional is coming out. Andre Galvao has done that, right? He has a little empire of instructionals,
Yeah.
And he's very technical. He's also very smashy, especially now in his later years. I don't mean that as a criticism, but like, being a champion only gets you so far, because there's a lot of champions. Every year there's like 50 new champions. Of those, maybe a few of them are repeat. Of those, maybe a few of them have repeated many, many times. But the point is not like the point is that they get a lot of mileage out of being technical, at least being able to communicate the technical, like their technical instruction, their technical capabilities, right? As opposed to like me smash face, That's what I'm saying, So I don't know. And then there are other guys who maybe they never really crossed over the threshold of greatness, but they still sell a crap load of instructionals. They still are very successful.
The thing is, you can't have
Like Bernardo Faria, like he did win, but only because Buchecha wasn't there that year.
But you can't appreciate the Keenans unless you have the steroid pumped smashers, right? Like you need the smashers to create the Keenans.
Yes, that fine.
Like they're both. I don't want jiu-jitsu to turn into like.
No, it's great that we had the smashers.
Yeah,
Like, I'm not saying that. Look,
the
I'm not saying
50-50
anything against the
training.
smashers. All I'm saying is observing is that the smashers don't have a long shelf life in terms
But
of
they're
their
still
like.
absolutely necessary to the game.
I don't know about absolutely necessary.
I think absolutely necessary.
They're appreciated and they're needed, and I like
Otherwise,
watching
if you
them.
don't have smashing people, you get two people hanging out 50-50, like scissoring each other for 5 minutes. And
Well, that's the other problem.
that's,
right?
I mean,
Yes.
I love technique as much as the next person, but
But you don't
there's
like
only
lightweights?
so much technical appreciation I can get out of.
Sometimes you just want to see two guys throw down.
I want to see like one guy throw down and another person deal with it spectacularly.
That is fun. That is true.
I like
Yeah,
it. It's cool when
that
two
is
people
cool.
go. It's cool.
It's cool when Mikey Musumeci deals with Muhammad Ali.
Yeah. Like
Although
that's
Muhammad Ali
good.
is very good.
But you can't be like, Muhammad Ali is doing bad jiu-jitsu, because like
I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
saying that
I know,
at all.
I know. One shouldn't say. Sorry, I use you a lot
Right.
to
Yes,
say what
I
I'm
know
doing.
what you're saying.
One shouldn't say that. It's just they both have value, and you can't.
They do have it. I'm not saying they don't. And sometimes it's not fair to say that this person is just a bully on the mat.
Well, I think that sometimes you should be the steroid crazy, roid head strength person.
No.
When it's appropriate. Sometimes it's appropriate. Sometimes it's appropriate to have a cigarette, right? And then sometimes, the majority of the time, you should probably be a technical wizard, you know, who is trying to be smart and intelligent and clever, but like, you still need that ish. You need something for people to learn how to be technical on, you know? That's what like new big white belts are for, or you know, big people in general. That's, I don't know, I have strong feelings about that.
About what?
Like, I don't like how the jiu-jitsu culture, especially among recreational gyms, tends to denounce any use of strength or any use of like.
No, because even the super technical guys are super strong.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's my only point. Like, I agree with you. Like,
It's a false dichotomy because the guys anybody who is a champion in jiu-jitsu is a remarkable.
you can never separate the athleticism
No.
from the technique.
I've never met anybody who's like just a terrible athlete, but then is so technical
Yeah.
that they have some sort of magic in them.
They like, can barely crawl off.
They're
the mat.
usually they're usually very very strong.
Although I do appreciate the Yoda archetype, where like it's this old master who walks in.
That's fun, but you never see that.
Sometimes-
That's the stuff of legend, right? Like,
No, you can see that.
there was a story that Shozo told me, and I wish I could remember the name, but he said that he remembered something like that happening at his gym,
Yeah.
where some old Japanese dude came in and cleaned up house.
I used to hear stories about that too with Aikido people. They would have
The
old
real
Japanese-
guy.
Yeah, like they would ship people in from like Japan,
Yeah.
and there was a bunch of like.
We don't know
military
we don't
guys.
know their names, but there was a real guy once.
I mean,
No, I think there
Yeah.
is there is something appealing to that kind of archetype, but
I believe.
it's actually
I believe.
I don't believe it.
I believe
I
it.
don't. It's nice to believe it.
I want to be that person.
I
That's
remember
my-
watching Henzo. There was that video of Henzo messing around with Paulo Miao when he was like a purple belt,
Mhm.
and like not being able to pass Miao.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fine.
You know, and it was like the one of these old, you know, like these videos that you might see of like a tiger getting like a tortoise or something, you know, like or like a mongoose or something that's like not a mongoose, but like
Impenetrable.
like a honey badger, something that's just like this big giant thing is like I will eat you, and then the thing's like no you're not, and then it's just like
Yeah.
you know, and then the tiger's like all confused and like what's happening, I don't understand, and you know Henzo was good natured about it. It wasn't like he was getting mad or anything, but it was
Yeah.
there was some obvious frustration in there, you know, even if it was bemused
Yeah.
of like here's this kid, and he was a kid, I think he was like 18 or 19, and he was like a purple or a brown belt or something at the time, and you know if it had been a real fight, I think Henzo would have murdered him, but it's not a real fight, it's a jiu-jitsu kind of training, so
Yeah, it's strange. Different.
I just don't think that the old, wise, experienced, grizzled veteran in jiu-jitsu very often walks in against an elite level
Oh
competitor
no. The
and wins their fight.
old wizened thing that only works with if you put them up against people who are not very experienced, right? Like a big guy who's
Yeah.
like who kind of knows what's going on, but
Right.
like it's his second day, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah. If you.
that is amusing to watch.
Yeah.
That will happen.
Yeah.
Right? Like there are actually lots of examples of like the dude that no one knows on the side of the mat
Yeah.
who's visiting, and everyone's like, who's the old dude or whatever? Who's that guy? And then they get tuned up because it's
Yeah.
some former world champion who's visiting or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that does happen. That's actually very easy to watch. But yeah, they're not going to beat the top guys. It's not going to happen. Or if it did, it would be. I mean, it's kind of like Hodger coming back and beating Bashesha, but Hodger's not really wizened.
Not yet.
He's not Yoda yet.
How old is Rafael?
They're in their 30s.
Rafael?
Oh, I think he's in his 30s, like mid to late 30s.
He's got the face of a person who's lived on this earth for so long. I don't know.
I think he spent a lot of time in the sun.
He does surf, doesn't he? I think he
Maybe.
does.
Yeah, maybe he does. I don't know. Yeah, he does.
Like, if I were to guess, We're talking about.
You think he's like 75 years old, 50? You think he's about 50? He's not built like he's 50.
It's just God.
It's really sad to watch these guys in my mind because these guys were, like, because he's now showing up to fight to win.
Yeah.
And like Hamza Bahal was another guy. I'm trying to think who else has shown up lately. Cyborg just won against Tim Spriggs.
Mm-hmm.
Cyborg's really kind of old, long in the tooth, but he's still good against the B level guys, right?
He seems to be doing well for himself.
He's killing it. God bless him. But it's kind of sad to see these guys show up and like Rafael Lovato Jr. didn't win. He got choked out, and like Hidalgo got choked out. It's kind of sad to watch these guys from 2 generations ago getting murdered.
I mean, Rafael's been doing
Inevitable.
MMA, right?
Yeah, I think he had to quit for some sort of medical reason.
It's bad.
I don't know what you could do. Why? Maybe it's some sort of concussion thing or something. But
Maybe his brow is too prominent.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's his brow is too prominent. I'm telling you, you're always looking over your shoulder. All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Can I do steroids and not do sports?
What? No, there's no point in that.
What do you mean? I don't have to look over my shoulder at that point.
Yeah, you do, because it's still illegal. I don't understand why pot is legal, but steroids are not, actually.
Yeah, okay, so we're on